Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, we're going to talk about court is not a singular event. Now, I think what happens is either when you file something or when your ex files something and we suddenly have a court date in front of us, that is when we go into crisis mode, right? That's when we're running around trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're trying to gather evidence. We're trying to gather information. We're trying to do all these things. And in the very beginning of, at the point of breakup, whether it's divorce or, or you weren't married or whatever the case may be, I think that that's more understandable. But I see people that stay sort of in that tunnel vision for the remainder of their, custody journey. And I think that's very, very detrimental. There's a far better way to do it. And so we're going to talk about that and how you can shift your perspective so that you aren't in this crisis mode and some of the things that you can do strategy wise long term. Before we dive into this, let me just remind you, if you like this content and you find it helpful, don't forget to hit like on the video. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And as always, please feel free to share this on social media. So many people need this help. And honestly, you guys, it's every day I talk to somebody that says, look, your take on this is unique. Like I find people that talk about the legal part. I find people that talk about the therapeutic side of narcissism and all that kind of stuff. But hey, these two worlds converge. And in the meantime, I'm trying to, manage my kids and my life and all the day-to-day things that are happening on top of that. So we've kind of got these three components working together. And that's really the problem that we're trying to solve. It's got to work in multiple ways to help you. You can't just work on one of those components, right? So that was a long way of saying, I think that this particular information is a little difficult to come by, so please feel free to share it on social media. Now, what do I mean by court is a singular event? I mean, again, I think that when it happens, people go into crisis mode, and that's when we're dealing with it. But we have to start to shift our view of our custody journey as just that, as a journey. And the court hiccups, so to speak, are points along a continuum, okay? So you have the point of breakup until the point where your child hits 18, right? I mean, I won't tell you that things magically disappear after that, but obviously they get a lot easier because you're not having to make decisions with the person. There's not usually child support flowing and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to kind of focus on the fact that this journey lasts from whatever the point of breakup is. And sometimes that's at 0, right? Before the kids are even a year old or before they're even born, up to the point of 18. And that's your journey. And what most people do is they don't focus on the court or the other person or any of the issues or tracking or strategy or any of that at all until somebody files something and they end up in court. And then when that little court episode is over, they kind of tuck everything away, go back to their normal life until the next hiccup comes and there's another court hearing, right? And if you have a really high conflict person, those hiccups might just be coming one on top of another because they're just filing motion after motion after motion and you can't even catch your breath in between. That happens a lot too. I've always heard this phrase that Brendan Burchard always says. If you don't know who that is, he's a great sort of performance coach and, a great speaker and author and all those kinds of things. And he always says, the best time to have a map is before you enter the woods. Now, I don't know if that's originally his or if he got that from somebody else because he's a very well-read person and has a lot of little quips like that in his hip pocket. But regardless of who said it or where it originated in the first instance, it is true. The very best time to have a map is before you enter the woods. And so when we're waiting and not really doing anything until that crisis point hits, when that court hearing is scheduled or you get served with those papers, you're already in the woods. and you don't have your map. And the time to create your map is when there is no court going on. Many, many people contact me. I would say the vast majority of people that contact me have court going on. They have a hearing coming up, or they're up to their eyeballs with a custody evaluator or whatever the case may be. And the people that are in between that don't have that going on, well, they're probably not talking to me because they're not in crisis mode. They're not on the channel, they're not on looking for those things. But when things die down for you, that is exactly when you need to start preparing. When that court hearing is over, you need to start preparing for the next one because it's coming. If you have a high conflict X, it's almost certainly coming. And so don't just tuck everything away in a drawer, nice and neat, and deal with it when the next crisis hits, because that's the most stressful way. Okay, so what do I mean by this? On a practical day-to-day basis, what this means is you need to know long-term, what is your goal in your custody journey? Okay, is it that you want more parenting time than you have overall? That you want less parenting time than you have overall? That you want everything to kind of stay the same and you want things to be stable for the kids? Whatever your long-term goals are, you need to think about that. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily think that's going to happen overnight or whatever, and you understand that it's a journey, but that long-term, this is what you would like to see happen, okay? Then what we do is we make sure that we're handling our communications and our interactions with the other person in a very court-aligned way, right? Because when you go in front of the judge, you want to have been handling things in the way that the judge would want you to handle it, okay? And if you don't know what that is, then how can you behave in alignment with it? You have to educate yourself and understand what it is the court wants to see from you. And particularly if you've gone into court and you haven't succeeded, I would say the number one thing is you don't understand what the court wants from you. That's usually the biggest hurdle that I think people have to get over, is they have to understand what the court wants from them and how the court views their case versus how they feel about their case. I was talking to a mom tonight who is concerned about her child starting overnights with dad. And, one of the things I said is, well, the court isn't going to look at it from the perspective of, oh, you feel like the child has anxiety or you feel like the child has this struggle. They're going to look at it from the perspective of what's happening. In other words, describe the events that are occurring. And also, are you supporting the other person's parenting and encouraging the child to go? And I said, ironically, if you encourage the child to go, let's just say we start with one overnight. Okay, you're worried about it. Let's just start with one. Let's start somewhere so you can show the court that you're trying to be supportive, you're trying to make progress. Then if that overnight doesn't go well, okay, then we have concrete evidence, right, that this isn't working or that this is difficult for the child. Right now, you're working based on your fear of what's going to happen and not what's actually happening. And the court deals in what's actually happening. So it's important that you start to understand these little nuances so that you can conduct yourself accordingly. The other thing that I think that is real important for people to do is their documentation. Let's get our documentation on point. Let's have a spreadsheet. Let's have dates, times. Let's have, 5 or 6 general subject categories of things that we're dealing with, and our notes and our cross-references of any other evidence like messages between you or whatever. Let's get those things documented. Let's figure out how to document, when to document, what to document, how detailed to be in the documentation. Okay. And so let's understand, like, okay, the other parent wants more time. Do I agree to that? Is it better to give more time and to be seen as supportive and flexible? Or does that sort of give things away to where the other parent can say, oh, well, they're getting more parenting time, therefore they should have an order for more parenting time, right? All these kinds of questions that come into play. And I wish I could just give you a long list of the hundreds of questions that could possibly come up and tell you how to answer them. But Every situation is nuanced and every situation is different. But I can tell you is that if you wait till the moment of impact, you don't have the ability, the same ability to save yourself because you haven't been preparing. It's like going in for a test and going, oh my goodness, I have a test in 10 minutes. Let me review and look at everything and then see how well I do on the test. You're not going to do near as well as if you had been preparing and reviewing for that test in advance, right? And getting that into your system while things were calm, while you could study, while you could figure it out. Once you're in crisis mode, emotions are high, you're operating from that crisis point, and you're just not able to absorb and learn and effectuate in the same ways that you can when you have a long-term strategy in place that this just becomes your operating procedure, right? This is how we do every day. This is the process. This is where I'm trying to get to. So therefore, I know these are the things that need to be documented. And, one of the things that happens too is I'll say to clients, okay, this is where you want to get to. What do you think your 3 biggest strengths are in your argument of why this would be a good thing for the kids? Like, what are the 3 things that are really on point and working in your favor? And what are the 3 things of the other parent maybe that are like their weak points or that they don't do well or whatever that would be applicable to the court changing this particular aspect that you're wanting them to change? Okay, so how do we dial in on those and get focused around those key points? You need somebody that you can kind of talk through that with and figure out like what are the key things, because it's different in every single case. Everybody's an individual. Everybody's got a different ex. Everybody's got different kids, right? So what the points are for one may not be the same as the other. But once you figure out what those are and you get them dialed in and you get your processes dialed in and your communication dialed in and your reactions or lack thereof dialed in and all of those pieces, then you're just sort of coasting along. Then that crisis point hits, and guess what? You're able to just say, okay, here's all my stuff. It's all gathered. It's ready. Let's present it to the court in this concise manner. Or, if you're working with an attorney, then you go, okay, got all my stuff for the attorney. Let me gather all that together, present it to them in this nice, concise manner. And guess what that will do? Save you a boatload on attorney's fees because you've got everything organized, dialed in, ready to hand over. And it's not this crisis thing where everybody's scrambling. You've already got it. You've got it laid out and you're efficient, right? And you know what your key points are. So really, that's why you have to look at this as a long-term journey and not a singular event. So if you'd like to learn more about my services and about how I might be able to help you strategize around these issues, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page where you can book a time to have a call with a member of my staff and learn more about my services and how I might be able to support you on this journey. See you guys next time.